Welcome everyone. I'm the GR Stewart, and this is my channel, the GR Stewart channel. And today we're doing something a little different. In the past, I've done the weekly recap for news, and I would go through news stories that appeared during the week, and I would, give my comment on it. This time, I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to actually find individual news stories and then comment on them. So my first one comes from MSNBC. Of course, we know that's a network full of nuts, and Alex Wagner does not disappoint. So she has Weissman on, former counsel for the FBI, and a professor, Cunningham. And they're talking about DA Fannie Willis down in Georgia. Of course, the devil was behind. He had a soul. He had to go get a soul. So he needs to go talk to Fannie because she's in deep water right now. And MSNBC, and really the mainstream press, is doing their absolute best to cover for this woman. Who says black lives don't matter? It matters to the press, because they're going to make sure that they do everything possible to protect this black woman. I mean, they are bending over backwards. If this DA was a white male Republican who was going after, let's say Jim Crow Joe Biden for the same thing, and he had slept with one of his subordinates, had overpaid her, had taken trips with her. Oh, they'd be grabbing ropes, looking for trees. They'd be ready to hang this man. But because it's a black woman who's doing their bidding by going after Trump, well, of course, you guys know the story. So let's play. This is about a couple of minutes, so it's a little long. I'm going to break in and give my commentary as it goes, because I don't want to go too long without commenting. So let's get to the first portion. Here we go.
That was the man I quote often and listen to even more often. Andrew Weissman, former FBI general counsel and the co-host of the indispensable Prosecuting Donald Trump podcast. Also with me is Clark Cunningham, a professor of law and ethics at Georgia State University. Andrew, I just know from our pre-conversation that you see this maybe slightly differently than I do. How much peril do you think this election conspiracy case is in?
Not a lot. I mean, I think I really meant what I had sort of tweeted out, which is if you think about where we were before this filing, the intimation that was made by defendant Mike Roman was that you had a boyfriend who was incompetent, who was hired by Fannie Willis solely because of that relationship.
Okay, so the intimation here is that he's incompetent. Okay, the man has never prosecuted a case. He was a tort lawyer. He sued people. He chased ambulance, looking for accidents. This is what he did. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's an honest living. But he's never prosecuted. And this is a RICO case where you're charging the former president of the United States. Oh, you want to go get heavy hitters. You want to go get sluggers for this. You don't want to get some lightweight who's never tried a case, really never tried a RICO case, never tried a case, period. Traffic ticket, nothing. And this is a guy that you're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money to. So, and then Andrew Weissman is showing his true colors because it's the Always Trump, Prosecute Trump podcast. So I should let you know how biased he is. But let's keep going.
And then they were the way they were going Dutch is that the profits of getting this contract were then split and she was getting this money. That was the look of the allegations. And the response, and obviously there can be a hearing and we'll see what comes out of this, but the response with a signed affidavit from Wade that was submitted today is that none of that is true. So I think at this point people might be nibbling around the edges, but there's a sworn affidavit that there was no relationship at the time. There's
a sworn affidavit that he submitted saying that none of it's true. Okay, so that's his side of the story. But you know what's going to come out eventually, because they have all these investigations going on at the state level and at the federal level. The receipts, which you're going to hear us say, oh, I don't want to get into the receipts because the receipts tell the tale. Eventually, the receipts are going to come out showing who paid for what. And okay, if y'all went Dutch y'all split everything down the middle. Okay, the receipts would show that. They would show you half of, like, you go out to dinner. You tell the waiter, okay, split the bill. Put it on my card, put it on her card. Okay, they bring you 2 receipts. There's 2 credit card statements. So let both sides show the receipts. The receipts are going to have to come out at some point to show that you went Dutch. Just him filing an affidavit saying they went Dutch, okay, that is evidence, but it's not all of the evidence that's going to be presented here. And Weissman knows this. He worked for the FBI, doing his best to cover for Fatty Fanny. Let's go.
There's a sworn affidavit, which seemed really strong to me about his qualifications. And there, I just want to point out, no.
Okay, Weissman said that the affidavit, I'm not a lawyer, but I filled out affidavits. The affidavits seem really strong, about his qualification. You're going to tell me that an affidavit is, because he wrote a good affidavit where he may be perjuring himself, is proof that he's a good prosecutor? Come on, Andrew. You must be on crack.
Lawyer is perfect. You are building a team. I have been in that situation where when I've been hired, I've told the person hiring me, like, just so you know, this is what I'm not good at.
Right.
And they're trying to pick somebody who can fit with other people. But I thought that was a really strong part. And then they said they roughly divided everything. So I just thought that the main thrust of what was being exposed, which to me is not that there's a relationship.
Okay, it's not that there's a relationship. So Andrew's going to say, oh, this happens all the time. But if they went Dutch, Andrew, then let's see the receipts. Sure, let's see the Cash App where you sent, if he paid for everything, let's see the Cash App dated back then where you sent the money back. Not now that after you've been busted and exposed, oh, well, he spent $3,800 on the trip. I sent him $2,000 to reimburse my half of it. Okay, when did you send it? So let's see. We want to see the receipts.
That happens. That's not the issue. It's the issue of hiring somebody, either profiteering or hiring the person because of that relationship. And so I thought the main thrust, again, if there's no contrary evidence and this is the record, I think this.
Okay, no contrary evidence, and this is the record. So the evidence just started the investigation. It's just starting to be gathered. All we really have is his affidavit, but the rest of it is going to come out. First of all, the first lie that he's going to get caught in is that that the contract that he signed with the DA, Fatty Fanny, came after they took a trip. They'd already had, as my grandmother would say, they'd already had relations. They'd already did the naked pretzel. They'd already been sexually active with each other. And then the next day they sign a contract and then he divorces his wife. Oh boy, what a coincidence. All this happening at that time. And Andrew doesn't see a problem with it. Because Andrew says, you got to listen to him, folks. Andrew says, oh, these things happen.
Is very much a tempest in a teapot in terms of the legal issue that's before this judge. I think the defendant has no right to complain about it. Whether their ethics.
The defendant has no right to complain about the judgment of the person who's filing charges against him. Do you see? God, boy. Andrew knows better than this. The weight of the government, who have almost an unlimited budget to come after you. This is a serious charge when the government comes after you. They can take your freedom away from you. They can take your wealth away from you. This is a serious matter. You want people who make those kind of decisions about somebody else's life to be fair, to be honest, and above board. You don't want situations where it looks like they've been compromised. Even the appearance of being compromised, you don't want. And he said up and said, these things happen. It ain't no big deal. It is a very big deal. They don't have any right to ask for her to be removed. Sure they do. If she's not making good decisions in general about life, hell, how do we know she's making a good decision about my case or anyone else's case? Let's go.
Issues, whether all of the sort of I's were dotted and T's were crossed, that there may be something there, but to me, the sort of main thrust of this seemed really, it looked like a mountain out of a molehill.
a mountain out of a molehill. This is nothing to him. But like I said, if this was reversed, if there was some county prosecutor going after Jim Crow Joe Biden, and he was a Republican, especially if he was a MAGA Republican who voted for Trump, supported Trump, and he was going after Biden after he left office, and it had slept with his subordinate, taking trips with her, paid her more money than anyone else in the office when she was not qualified to be on a case like this, because she had never prosecuted a case before. She was an ambulance chaser. Oh yeah, if it was reversed, he would have a big problem with it. He would find all kind of ethical problems with it. But because it's a black woman, DEI, we got to protect the black woman because Black Lives Matter. Let's go. Finish up with Andy.
Professor Cunningham, I know that you wrote an op-ed in the New York Times, and I'd love to read an excerpt of it, where you said, I believe the judicious and far-sighted course would be for Miss Willis to take a personal leave of absence and turn over control of the district attorney's office and the case against Mr. Trump to a career deputy district attorney. Now, that was before this filing came out today, and I wonder if there's anything in it in terms of her explanation of things, her defense, if you will, that changes your mind.
Well, with all respect to your other guest, reading this response and the, I would say, very vague and evasive affidavit filed by Nathan Wade strengthens my...
Very vague and evasive. Very vague. But this is the evidence. They want to close the case based on one very vague and evasive affidavit. Oh, nothing else here to see. Case closed. He said that none of this happened. He didn't do the naked pretzel with Fat Fanny. I guess he's trying to say maybe she's not my type. We were just taking trips together to talk about the case to Aruba and cruises and flying to California. And yeah, I put all this on my credit card, but I know Fat Fanny was good for it. We really went Dutch. So I'm pretty sure that she cashed at me at some point, but I don't have the Cash App receipts.
Opinion that she should take a temporary leave of absence from the office and turn it over to a career prosecutor. I think that there's a lot that the Trump defendants can work with here. And I think it's way too early to make any predictions about what the ultimate outcome of the disqualification motion is going to be. I've said that before. I say that now.
Okay, the outcome of this qualification motion is the judge is going to rule in her favor because that's just the way local state politics are. The judge does not want to alienate the county district attorney. So they're going to find a way to save her reputation somehow. So he's going to rule in her favor. So that's how the case is going to come out. But everyone knows that this is ethically wrong, that she should not be doing the naked pretzel with a man that she just gave a contract to, a no bid contract on top of that, paying him more. Now they have other prosecutors that she hired, two others. One of them is actually a RICO expert. Now, if anybody should be making bank off of this, it should be her. But she's not. He's making the bank, and he's never even prosecuted a case before. Not even a traffic ticket, a misdemeanor. He's an ambulance chaser, and she gave a huge contract to, approved all this extra billing for him, and then you're sleeping with him and taking trips. And you tell me that doesn't look bad?
But let me point out one thing that's pretty clear just from what's been filed. So we've seen Mr. Roman's lawyer filed something late this afternoon. She finally got evidence that Mr. Wade spent about $3,800 at the beginning of November 2022 to pay for both of them to take a 3-day luxury trip to Aruba. They came back from Aruba, and at that point, he did not have a contract. His contract had expired. They together signed a new contract right after coming back from Aruba. She personally signed it. He personally signed it. I cannot understand, if she was in a romantic relationship with this man as a public official, why she would be signing a contract, an outside contract, with someone that she's in a relationship with.
Okay, I'm going to answer it for you, Professor. Evidently, he must have laid it on her so well that she had to come back and hire this man and make sure that she kept him around. Gave him this nice lucrative contract. He spent $3,800. Now, come on. Come on. In today's time, you trying to tell me y'all went Dutch and nothing happened? Y'all didn't have a romantic relationship and you just spent $3,800 for y'all to take a trip and nothing happened? And that somehow Okay, if she reimbursed you or she paid half of it, let's see the receipts for her half. Since you submitted vague, evasive affidavit and now they want to close the case, let's see the evidence. Show me, show everyone where she paid half. Ain't no woman getting ready to take a trip with you and do the naked pretzel and pay half to go have sex with you. If she's going to lay down with you, yeah, she's going to make sure that you are paying. That's the price. Let's go.
And then that contract gave her the authority to allow him to go over monthly limits. And the next year, she did it month after month after month. He collected at least $30,000 more than the cap, and she apparently personally approved it. So
$30,000 more than what was approved in the budget that she approved. Every month he's going over, and he's only working a 40-hour week. Okay, I'm sorry. If you go over the budget, shouldn't you be putting in some extra hours beyond the 40? The 40 is already in the contract. What is the extra money for? Well, the extra money for is, it's for the groove. It's for laying it down right. That's what she's approving. I'm pretty sure, if he's having to, especially if Fat Fanny is not his type, he's probably having to work extra hard. That's what the extra money is for, I believe, in my opinion. But let's go and let's finish hearing what the professor has to say.
I don't see these filings as resolving issues at all. Again, I'm not prejudging whether she would be disqualified, but I do think the defendants still have a lot to work with to argue that she had a financial stake in the amount of money he was getting paid as outside counsel.
Yeah, she had a financial stake in this as outside counsel. She's approving extra money when he's billing for 40 hours and putting some extra in there. And we all know the extra work was that he was doing. And she's paying for it. So really, in addition to wire fraud, this is probably prostitution. Case could be made for wire fraud and for prostitution. Let's go. I'm not a lawyer, but you guys know I did go to law school for a year and a half. And this was covered under when I took my class in criminal law. If I was a prosecutor, this is what I would bring. Wire fraud and prostitution and improper billing to the state, because whatever she was paying for, the extra money that she was approving month after month after month, was not for any legal work. You guys can fill in the blank as to what you think the extra money was for.
I can't get into the receipts.
I can't get into the receipts is what Lamb, you talking about Bird Brain Haley? Oh, Alex Wagner's been as empty-headed as they come at MSNBC. Her and Joy Reid. She said, I can't get into receipts because the receipts would tell the story. The receipts would tell if y'all went Dutch or not. Let's see the receipts so you show that y'all went half on everything. Half on the room that you stayed in, half on the meals, half on the airfare, on the cruise tickets. Let's see the receipts that show. Oh, I can't get into the receipts.
Yeah. And I absolutely trust that Professor Cunningham has looked at Mike Roman's lawyer's filing judiciously. But I'm sure there is going to be some amount of back and forth about all of this.
Yep.
I go to the Burt Jones case where it's, there's the legal question and then there's the ethical question. And the fact of the matter is, as distasteful as all this may be, this is the highest profile case, maybe certainly in this DA's lifetime, maybe in Georgia state history, going after a former president on charges of election conspiracy, a RICO charge against a president. And I just wonder, is there some merit to, as Professor Cunningham suggests, basically taking a leave of absence, which would not scuttle the broader case and would turn it over to someone else in her office?
So I think I agree with the professor that it is useful to await the hearing and the full facts in the same way that I found.
Now, all of a sudden, you agree with the professor. Now you want to wait for the case to evolve and for all the facts? No, Andy, earlier you said we have this affidavit. It was written so well that qualified him to be a prosecutor. Just off this affidavit. It was golden. Boy, it was hardcore. Now the professor said this thing was evasive and elusive. Now, you have somebody there who actually knows what they're talking about. Well, now I agree with the professor. Now we should have the trial and wait for all the evidence to come out. You're ready to close the case just on the affidavit. We got the evidence. We got the affidavit. He says this didn't happen. He didn't sleep with her. They paid half. They went Dutch. Now all of a sudden you want to have the case, have it adjudicated because the fix is in. The judge is not going to rule against her in this case, although he may reprimand her, he may say something about poor judgment, but he's going to give her the benefit of the doubt that they can prosecute this case, even though she's made some very bad judgments. And we're not even going to get into the money she misappropriated from the federal government for the juvenile center. That's going to be in another story, but I'm just letting y'all know it's coming up.
That the filing today was informative and changed my view. I was concerned about the idea of hiring somebody while you were in a relationship. I'm less concerned about the idea that the contract continued because these were 6 month contracts. But I do think, let's wait for the hearing. I do not think that there should be an overreaction of saying, oh, if there's an appearance, you should withdraw. I've been in those kinds of cases. I've worked for...
I'm sorry. Didn't Andy and all the rest of the lefty loons were out there screaming about Clarence Thomas because he's presiding over a case where a person who clerked for him, you're like, well, you can't rule on this case because any appearance of impropriety, you should excuse yourself. But now all of a sudden, well, it don't matter if it looks bad. But, it can look bad for Clarence Thomas, Republican, pointing about Bush, but somehow for Fat Fanny, it's okay. I know this looks bad, but she shouldn't have to recuse herself for this. It's just a naked pretzel. Who haven't done the naked pretzel with somebody that works for them?
Robert Mueller, I have seen high-profile cases and the kinds of allegations and spurious allegations that are made. This comes up a lot of times when people...
And spurious allegations, Andy, did you not just cite the impeccable affidavit that Wade submitted admitting that they were doing the naked pretzel? But supposedly they went Dutch on the travel stuff. And this is a high-profile case, the highest-profile case in Georgia's history, probably outside of the arrest and prosecution of Martin Luther King. And you go get somebody with no prosecutory experience, pay him thousands of dollars extra each month that you are traveling with and doing the naked pretzel, i.e. relations, and you saying, ain't nothing wrong, there's nothing to see here. Y'all making a mountain, y'all making a molehill into a mountain.
We'll ask judges to recuse because of an appearance of impropriety. And usually really good judges, their first instinct is, you know what, I don't want any question, I'm happy to recuse. And then they think,
unless
wait
it's Clarence Thomas. I'm sorry, it had to be said.
Okay, true.
Yeah, but Clarence Thomas recused himself. At first he said, law clerk, really? I didn't know the guy was in my office, but okay, fine. But I can be fair about this decision because it really didn't involve this person. He was just on the fringe of it. I think he owns a company, but it wasn't really about him. But in the end, Clarence Thomas recused himself because he said, I guess the appearance of impropriety is enough. That's the standard. But all of a sudden the standards are thrown out the window when it's a black woman because Andy Weissman and Alex Wagner, they just love some black people because Black Lives Matter.
Well, look, I did put a caveat on how I phrased that. But then judges think about, wait a second, that is not how you can run a system. That you don't just recuse every time somebody raises an issue. There really has to be a legal standard. It has to be met. You cannot let one side or the other use gamesmanship. And so if this turns out to be something where...
Okay, but in this case, Andy, it's not about gamesmanship. It's really about whether she's making a good decision. And this person's life is on the line. And when your life is on the line, you want to make sure that the prosecutor, who's part of government, is making a good decision. if she's sleeping with someone that works for her, paying him extra, and there's no evidence, there's no record as to why he's billing for 40 hours a week, not 40 hours plus overtime, 40 hours a week is what he's billing for. But yet he's putting in invoices with thousands of dollars of extra money thrown in there. And you're going to sit here and say, well, this is like nothing. This is minor. We're just making too big of a deal out of this. This is curious. And we shouldn't allow these kind of allegations to affect whether we prosecute cases or be thrown off cases. Andy, come on. You're an embarrassment to your profession.
Yes, she had a personal relationship with somebody in an office after they were hired. That, to me, is not a reason to recuse. I would note, just to the professor's point, that one thing that is at least alleged by the Fani Wallace submission is that every receipt, all of the payments had to be approved by the chief financial officer of Fulton County. I was looking for exactly that kind of thing. What kind of
safeguards?
Exactly. If you're having that relationship, what do you...
All the receipts, invoices, had to be approved by the county financial officer. She's signing off on the invoices every month, month after month, and the CFO is just paying them. Don't try to push this off on the CFO as if he has some bearing on this. If Fat Fanny says, okay, this invoice is legit, my boyfriend, who's giving it to me good, that we're taking trips with, submitted this invoice, even though there's extra money that he's billing us for, but there's no line item for what this extra is, I want you to pay it. So what's the CFO going to do? He's going to pay it. He figured that, hey, she must know what she's talking about.
You putting it in place. That doesn't mean there could be more to it, to the professor's point. I do think it is useful to have a hearing on this, but I do think this is a much more complicated situation, and people should not be saying, oh, the better way to deal with this is just to recuse. I think that you cannot run a system that way.
Professor Cunningham, there's the sort of legal avenues here. So there are also political avenues here. The Georgia State Legislature has their committees and their panels that are going to be investigating this. Can you talk a little?
The state legislature is trying to impeach the woman. They formed two committees to investigate her. At the federal level, the House of Representatives and the Judicial Committee is in one of the other committees is investigating her. So they're getting ready to subpoena her over the grant money that they sent, almost $500,000 that was sent to her county, i.e., was supposed to be earmarked for a juvenile center. This is supposed to be juvenile prevention. They, instead of taking the money and running the juvenile center is chained up. They haven't even opened the doors on it, but they took the money from the government. And what does their office do with it? They're buying computers, they're taking trips. And then when the lady who wrote the grant, the lawyer who wrote the grant, who's a supervisor over the juvenile division, says, hey, y'all can't use this money for that. I wrote this grant for this juvenile center, and y'all using it for other things. Guess who got fired for blowing the whistle to Fat Fanny to let her know that money was being misappropriated? So Fat Fanny's in a lot of trouble.
A little bit about the climate in and around this case
Sure.
in the state of Georgia and sort
Sure.
of, please, the mic is yours.
So the climate that Andy is saying that this is no big deal. She shouldn't have to recuse herself over all of this because this is a molehill. This is nothing. But these things happen according to him. This evidence that we got, this affidavit, where he says it didn't happen, so we should just close the case and go home. All of this for nothing, Andy. And here y'all are ready to throw Trump in jail over a woman who alleged that he raped her. That he says he doesn't know. There's no physical evidence, no rape kit, no nothing, no eyewitness, no. She said it happened in the dressing room, but what? Nobody heard you scream, holler. You didn't scratch the man. You didn't. What? Nothing. That's a nothing. And yet you want to take the man's business away from him and run him out of New York over nothing. This is something, and you're trying to downplay it because Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, I'm going to add that, though. Let me add a footnote to what Andrew just said, and that is my suggestion is in many ways strategic. I'm an expert on how these things go in Georgia, and we're looking at months of delay, I would say, even if she ultimately prevails, months of delay. And right now, we've just found out that the D.C. case has been taken off the March schedule. There's an opportunity for the Georgia DA's office maybe just to sever Donald Trump, try him alone, and jump into this space that's in the spring right now and give the whole nation a televised trial right away before the general election. I think that's incredibly valuable.
Now, folks, in case you haven't figured it out, this man is not a Trump supporter. He's not a MAGA. I don't even think he's a Republican, to be totally honest, because he's trying to give you a strategy where you can keep this thing moving forward. Where she just step aside, take it off the table. The opposition wants her to recuse herself. Okay, fine. I'm gonna take a leave of absence. I'm just gonna step aside, and me and my boyfriend are just gonna lay up for a couple of months. I'm gonna get the good loving, and then I'll come back in 3-4 months when this is all over.
And Fani Willis could make that happen if she made this disqualification motion go away, which she could do right now if she took a leave of absence. So it's a strategic point. I appreciate Andrew saying prosecutors don't want to be chased around by accusations, but
of course they don't want to be chased around by accusations, especially if the accusations are not real. But in this particular case, the accusation is very real, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Once again, with all of the activity that's going on, all of the committees, all the subpoenas that she's facing, the receipts are going to come out. The bank records are going to come out. Now, they were able to pay off the wife to get her to drop her suit, the divorce suit, so he didn't have to testify and bring all this into evidence because she says she has the receipts. She looked at the bills. Hell, they were married, until Fat Fanny came and broke up her marriage. And I believe in Georgia, she can actually sue Fat Fanny for breaking up a marriage for the damages. But evidently, they paid her off, were able to drop the lawsuit, so none of this would come out. But yet, it's still going to come out. There's too many groups and committees and subpoenas that are going to be issued when people are going to want the records. We want to see the records now. Show us the money.
DA Willis is smart enough to realize that this is going to go on for a while. It's not going to be resolved February 15th. Now, in terms of what's going on here, I think there are a lot of other problems that could cause DA Willis to be removed. We have a new prosecuting attorneys qualifications commission that's about to get into business. There's going to be a complaint filed against her.
The DA qualification committee was formed just for her. All they're going to look at is her and her action and her decisions. Whether giving her boyfriend a lucrative contract when he had no prosecutory experience. Not a traffic ticket, not a misdemeanor, nothing. And to pay him more money than anyone else who had experience. One of the ladies on there is actually a RICO expert, and she's not billing these kind of numbers.
I'm quite sure they're going to investigate her. There's this committee that's been formed by the state Senate, and I mentioned the invoices before.
Now, another committee formed by the state Senate is going to investigate her. Oh, Andy said there was nothing here to see. Prosecutors don't want to be chased off cases over allegations. Well, I'm sorry, Andy. Evidently someone doesn't think this is as minor as you think it is. You and Alex, who don't want to see the receipts. Well, I can't get into that about the receipts. So, now we got two committees at the state level. Let's keep going.
To say, I've been a legal ethics expert for decades. These are just about the worst billing invoices I have ever seen. And I don't have anything against Nathan Wade, but the state, they should not have been paying him on these invoices. He submitted invoices for like $10,000 for a week of work. He said 40 hours, and that was it. I've never seen invoices like this. And again, it makes you suspicious.
Okay, this man, professor, ethical expert in Georgia on Georgia law, who is saying that this is the worst billing invoices that he's ever seen. And he's not young. He's not a spring chicken now. So he's been around for a while. So I guess if he's the expert, subject matter expert, he knows what he's talking about. And he said this is the worst that he's seen. $10,000 for a week for 40 hours of work. I didn't know government workers made that kind of money. Contractors made that kind of money. But evidently, boy, if you know what you're doing in bed, and you can lay it down right, and your girlfriend is a county DA, well, I guess you can. And for these, like you said, they shouldn't even be paying the invoices because they're much higher, 3 and 4 times higher than the other 2 lawyers are making. But Fannie's going to defend this. Fat Fannie's defending this. She's standing by her man. I got to give her credit.
It's about them being approved by someone who's in a relationship with him. The new investigative committee of the state Senate is going to dig into this. And I think.
Okay, now he's saying that Wade should have known better also. But Wade, all he's looking at, boy, if I do this right, if I give it a good loving, then a payday. Cha-ching.
I think it's possible. I'm just speculating, but I think it's possible they're going to find out he overbilled.
Find out that he overbilled. What are the chances? What are the chances? We know he overbilled because he exceeded the cap every month. She had to approve the overage. And there's no extra hours that he's billing for on the invoice. It's 40 hours a week. So what is the extra money for? Of course he overbilled. And they're going to easily find out he overbilled. That's wire fraud. That's all kind of frauds that he's committing on the state. If he submitted it via a computer, which I'm pretty sure he had to, that's wire fraud. If he mailed the invoice in, that's mail fraud. And also it opens the door to, if I was DA, to a prostitution charge. But I'm not going to get into that.
Which, ask Andrew, but that's arguably wire fraud. So this is not going to go away. I think it's just going to get worse as long as DA Willis continues, as she did today, to fight really in a pretty rough way.
Okay, what is she supposed to do? Professor, she's fighting for her man, standing by her man. So I guess that's admirable. Anyway, we're done with that, guys. For me to have to sit there and watch Bird Brain Alex Wagner is torture. But I'm doing it for you guys. And I'm giving my assessment of this is just how bad the news is and the reporting is. And I'm actually surprised they actually brought the professor on there to talk sense, because normally they would just bring someone like Andy Weissman on there's nothing in here to see. There's nothing going on. All these committees, and he didn't even get into what Congress is doing. There's 2 committees in Congress that are investigating her, that are getting ready to start issuing subpoenas and opening the case against her. And yet Andy, there's nothing here to see. These scurrilous allegations, no DA wants to be run off a case. Anyway, you guys have heard it for yourself. I will continue to analyze these stories. And the gift that keeps on giving is Joy Reid and Morning Joe and Alex Wagner. But Alex is probably the dumbest of the 3. Anyway, with that being said, guys, that's my assessment on this particular story. I will bring you other stories of how biased and how stupid and ignorant and crazy and misleading the mainstream press is, or as Rush Limbaugh would say, the lamestream press, which I have to agree with Rush on this one. They are very lamestream. And if you listen to this nonsense and believe them, well, you know what that makes you. Anyway, with that being said, I want to thank everyone for watching, tuning in. Please continue to send your love. I love you all. I love everyone. And I will be back. Thank you for watching the DJR Stewart Show, our channel, podcast, whatever you want to call it. Bye.